You're listening to The Paul Higgins Show, where ambitious tech consultants come to unlock their potential. After 18 years as a global leader, I launched several businesses, culminating in a successful exit. I'm sharing what I learned, plus what's working now from mentoring tech consultants. You will hear leaders within our industry to help you build a business you love that allows you to do what you want. If you are looking for immediate cash flow wins to fuel your growth, go to our free ebook at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap. Imagine you look at your AppExchange in the Salesforce AppExchange, your listing, and you just have a dread come across, shame. You know that you've got so many fires to put out, but this is the one that will bring in you the most deals, and you haven't done anything about it. Hi, I'm Paul, and welcome to the Paul Higgins Show. This is episode 595. And in today's podcast, we talk to Peter Ganza from AppEx Whisperer, and he is the AppExchange Whisperer. And you're going to learn really three key things. One is how to stand out from all the herds. And yes, it's very relevant to your app listing or your Salesforce implementation partner listing, but it's actually broader than that. So if you're not a Salesforce partner, still please listen. The second is more specific to the AppExchange and for ISVs. And then, as I said, the third thing is around why it's really important to have a listing, whether it's on the AppExchange or whether it's on Monday, NetSuite, whatever the partner network and directory is, why it's really important to get that right. And Peter gives you some great tips on how to do it. Peter has been in the B2B tech industry for 20 years with roles in marketing, product management, and technical support. He's worked for Salesforce for 2 years as a product marketing leader, building Canada's first go-to-market program across products and verticals. He now supports ISVs and SIs, as I've mentioned, to get more leads on the AppExchange, which ultimately leads to more deals, which he emphasizes. You can see Peter on the YouTube channel, Paul Higgins Mentoring. And what I'll do now is hand you over to Peter Ganza from appexwhisperer.com. Great to have you here, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
You, to me, seemed a bit like the needle in the haystack, right? I had lots of SI partners and also some ISVs, which we'll talk about both, really struggling on the AppExchange in particular and really struggling with SEO. And then, long story short, I met you, we had a conversation, and I know that you've helped some of our community base, which is fantastic. And we're really here today to hear more from you about who you help and how. Well, why don't we kick off with who are your ideal clients, and then we can talk about some of the problems that you solve for them.
So my ideal clients are partners that want more deals. And I know that's a great general statement that, pretty much every partner wants more deals. Yeah. But I tend to prefer going with the smaller partners only because they move fast, right? The larger partners, end up in paperwork, right? NDA and accounts receivable and all that kind of stuff. I like to move fast. I don't do snail's pace. Yeah. And I find that the small and more mid-sized ones are able to execute quickly, not just in terms of getting ongoing with the engagement, but actually taking constructive criticism and making changes and taking risks.
Great. And how do you define a smaller agency? Is that by numbers, by revenue, by something else?
So there's really no definition. I'd say probably employee size maybe is the one variable that sticks out, maybe less than 50. It really comes down to who engages and how passionate they are. I say no to partners all the time. That's the one benefit of being the needle in the haystack, as you said aptly.
Great. And, I suppose you listening probably similar that we, I certainly get people on that are 50 plus to share their insights, but I cater in my mentoring and in our community for those that really you're the owner that's still doing the majority of the sales and marketing. I think that's fair to say, and I think that's where Peter, getting someone like Peter to help you, and he'll tell you what he's going to help with in a moment is really right. So that's the sort of size of client. We're talking Salesforce world here. Just wanted to talk about that. I just want to be clear: do you only do Salesforce work, or do you do work outside the platform?
100% Salesforce. Not that you can tell, but I used to work at Salesforce, and 100% just Salesforce.
Great. But I think some of the learnings can be applied across the other platforms. Like if you look at Most of the other marketplaces aren't sophisticated as Salesforce. So, one thing you could do if you are on another marketplace, whether it's Monday, NetSuite, or whatever, you can go and take learnings from Salesforce. And Peter's going to tell you some of the clients that he works with, so you can go and at least look at some of those, which is a good indicator. But there's some of the problems, right? So I sort of briefly opened the start, but what are some of the problems you see? If you had to mention, three common ones, the partners come of that size come to get help from you for, what are they?
When I worked at Salesforce, one of the things that I realized early on doing enablement was that every partner pretty much sucks. I'll say when it comes to go to market, every SI has offers the white glove treatment. I think I'm going to go buy some white gloves. They can do everything, right? They're experts in every cloud, and literally they try to be horizontal. When it comes to ISVs, our product can do anything. We can do everything. You got a dollar in a heartbeat, we can help you out, right? Biggest problem across the board is focus.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I do well. I tell partners, business founders and executives all day long, I don't care what you think you do or who you think you are. The only thing that matters is what your customers are paying you for.
Yes.
And in every case, it's the same. Look at the clients you have. It may not be that many clients, but something is going to stand out. One thing, two things, maybe three things. Of course, there'll be outliers, but you can't go to market with an outlier. You can't own that. And you can't own anything horizontal. You have to pick one thing, a use case, an industry, a product. It doesn't matter. Focus on one thing. Get a beachhead. That's the first problem. The second problem is they tend to rely, I'd say, on Salesforce, right? Oh, I'm a partner, and how do I get to an AE? I want to get some deals, and it's not as simple as that. There
Yes.
are ways to do that. I'd be happy to talk more about that, but every partner's chasing AEs,
Yes.
right? That doesn't tend to work. And the last problem is almost as important as the first. It's the old playbook,
Yes.
right? What's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing and over again and expecting different results. Every single tech company, just in general, and specifically Salesforce partner, argues and battles over calls to action. It's the subject line in the email. Oh, we got to do an offer. Oh, Google Analytics, we need, and everyone's doing the same thing. It's the definition of insanity. I don't follow the traditional playbook, not because, let me take that back. I don't follow the traditional playbook because I found that specifically in the Salesforce ecosystem, there's a better way, which is don't be a sheep in the herd of sheep,
Yes.
be the wolf. And that takes some risk and doing things differently, trying things that maybe others haven't tried. Those are the top three things I'd say.
Couldn't agree more. And if you've been listening to me for a while, getting either interviews like the one here with Peter or my solo shows, I talk a very similar theme. And my background quickly was, Coca-Cola, where we had a really simple product and therefore had to get really sophisticated in the way we market it, right? If I look at the SaaS world, really complicated products, so therefore they don't have any time to do the marketing. And they think because the products complicated and the solutions complicated, they need to complicate the marketing. And as you know from some of the examples you're going to give, that's completely the wrong way. And I once had a brand manager stand in front of us. He goes, "You won't remember anything about what I said, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm a speck in your life. Like you think Coca-Cola the whole time, and I'm just a speck in your life." And then he went in to sort of talk about how that relates to people have only got three products they're going to think about when they go into a fridge and a hierarchy, and how do you fit in those. And I think it's the exact same when people are buying technology. Our clients don't sit there all day thinking about buying technology. We do, but they don't. And that's why you need someone like Peter to cut through that sea of sameness that's out there. Why don't we start with ISVs and AppExchange? And maybe you could bring in an example of how you do things differently so we can really wrap our hands around that.
The first thing I'll say is, and this applies to SIs as well, more measurable in terms of ISVs. Most partners don't realize the AppExchange it has and is a search algorithm.
Mm.
Some people compare it to Google. In some ways, it is similar to Google, but in other ways, it's vastly different. Actually, quite complicated. There is no one thing. Yes, SEO is important, and there are intricacies within that I help people with, but there's a lot more to it. All the different content, that's available there, right? Pictures, videos, resources that you can add, and those types of things. Those aren't necessarily typical just SEO type of keyword things, right? So one of the things that I provide is optimization of those,
Yes.
the entire listing, if you will, and turns into results. One of the things that came out of this, which I wasn't expecting 2 years ago when I started, was how the impact is measurable when it comes to positions, right? So when I engage with a client, let's say DQE, perfect example, they do deduplication, and I measure, look at the keywords, look at the positions they're at, right? And do my magic and start measuring those on a monthly basis. And it's easy to see the performance improvement. In their case, I don't know, it was like 140 improved positions across 7 keywords or something insane like that. But it's more than just the SEO. There's magic behind the scenes. In compliance with Salesforce agreements, it's all above board and those types of things. But I'm pretty sure I'm the only one in the universe that actually gets this niche within a niche. Even Salesforce doesn't understand it, I don't believe. But
And I think, that's your unique experience. Like you said, you worked there for 2 years and now you've been doing it successfully for partners. And why I brought Peter on here isn't for him to tell you all his secrets so then you can go and do it yourself, right? You've got to make choices, as we've talked about. You've got to make choices as to who you're going to market to, but you also got to make choices around what you're going to do. Right? I love the hedgehog out of Good to Great, where it basically says if you can do one thing better than anyone else, the fox will never outsmart you. And I think in this area, don't try to be an SEO expert if you're an ISV for the AppExchange, right? It's leave that to Peter and get Peter to do that. And then you focus on other things that only you can do, right? I think like you said, you knock a lot of partners back, Peter. What are some of the things that you look for to work with an ISV?
so one of the challenges or opportunities I'll say with ISVs is typically they're created by developers or development-oriented founders.
Yes.
And I get it. It's their baby. They love it, and it can do a bazillion things. One of the things I look for early on is, are they looking for input, right? Are they willing to change, if you will? And the other thing that goes along with that is how they actually run their business in general. So I can make this pretty simple. There are two types of ISVs, and frankly, two types of partners in general.
Yes.
And I've worked at both and now consulted with both types. The first are gun shy, conservative, a reasonable business. There's no wrong answer here, Paul, but they're unwilling to take risks, right? And they'll grow organically, which is fine. Great. They run a great business, take care of their family and their employees, and they're happy with a little bit of steady growth. The
Yes.
other side, the ones I tend to focus more on, are the ones that are willing to take the risks, are mortgaging their house, are borrowing money from friends, and going all in on it and taking those risks. It's uncomfortable, and I talk a lot about comfort because one of the things I look for is, are they comfortable? Every business owner, every partner owner, you need to feel uncomfortable. Not just from your team. And I'm not just selling this. I'm not just saying it. But if
Yes.
you're comfortable every day, you're not going to be, the rocket ship. Once in a while, fairly often, you need to feel uncomfortable because that's a good thing. It means you're doing something that other people are not doing, going outside of your comfort zone. And to me, that's very important. When I get partners come in and they tell me what they want and what they expect, like I said earlier, I say no all the time. Not because I can't help them, but because I know that the results will not be measurable enough. I don't do hourly rates. I don't do, what partners want. I do a very specific thing, and I do it because it's measurable and it works.
Well, let's quickly touch on the model. My understanding of the model is that you do an assessment and that helps you then understand what the upside is, and then you go and do the engagement. Is that typically how it works?
Correct. So I only sell one thing. It's called the AppExchange assessment,
Yeah.
and it covers, I'll say, two components at the high level. One is, of course, I focus on the listing itself
Yes.
and all the details within it. The other component to it is outside of the listing, and I call it more of a go-to-market assessment because how do people actually find your App Exchange listing, right? And that involves quite a few things, organic and Google, all the social platforms, events, working with the AMP team, videos, blog, I mean, all that kind of stuff, right? When I present the assessment and I provide a report, right, detailing everything out, I identify the big opportunities.
Yes.
I won't do everything, right? As we spoke earlier, every partner's website sucks, and I identify those because it impacts organic, which impacts your listing. And I don't build websites, right? I can't do all these things. I know what to look for in the overall go-to-market, and that's based on data,
Yes.
right? Recovering product manager, the only thing that matters is data. So all these things that I look at have science behind them, but I can't help with everything. And then speaking with the partner, potentially a post-assessment engagement. The most typical, frankly, is just managing it on an ongoing basis, right? They outsource that to someone, maintain the keyword positions, put in some updates, and provide them better reporting than the partner portal provides, which is pretty medieval, I'll say.
Yeah, and I think your sweet spot was that, it's best when someone's been on the exchange for at least 4 months. Is that, have I got that right?
So most of my clients, yeah, yes, I'll answer the question. Yes, most of my clients have been on the App Exchange for a number of at least a year, I'd say, and or more. The only reason that been on the App Exchange for at least some period of time provides that data,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So perfect example, one of my requirements is I need access to the data, whether that's an export or getting an account to the partner portal, which is most often the case. I need to be able to see, well, what happened previously. A number of partners reach out to me that just got on the App Exchange or want to get on the App Exchange. Great, awesome. I don't target those folks. I'm happy to give them tips or send them to someone else. You have to have been on the App Exchange for, I'd say at least 6 months, to be honest with you, to get the best results.
Yeah. And, you're across this. In your opinion, is there, what's the pace of growth of apps on the App Exchange? Is it, the numbers, like, what are you seeing? Is it rapidly expanding? Is it moderate? Is it shrinking? Like, what's happening at the moment from an App Exchange point of view?
It is consistently growing. I'll say that at the outset. It's definitely not shrinking. Partners do fall off, on here and there, typically just because they're not in compliance or those types of things, but they're very, very few. Those are not making an impact. But I do have the data, and it's, I'd say, moderate to extreme growth because of the ecosystem, right? I've worked in old tech for decades, semantic, open text, and I call it old tech because now I'm in the Salesforce ecosystem. It's just unbelievable, right? What Salesforce was able to create. If you pull the ecosystem out from Salesforce, it would be far more valuable than Salesforce itself,
Yes.
right? It would have a value of over $1 trillion, millions of jobs, and every the numbers, the average number, Salesforce customers spend 1.5 times their ACV, so their annual contract value, the amount that they buy it for, right? They spend on a year, whatever products they buy. They spend 1.5 times that basically on the ecosystem, specifically the App Exchange, 1.5 times the ACV within the first 18 months.
Yeah.
And Salesforce recognizes they can't do everything. And they've built it in such a way that there's this opportunity out there. And it's not as competitive as most partners think. A lot of partners, they'll come to me and say, "Oh, I don't want." Actually, I worked at a partner right after Salesforce that was this way, where they said, "Oh, we want to, be quiet and not make too much noise because they might see what we're doing." And I'm thinking, they know what you're doing. You're doing something that they're doing, but you're doing it better, which is what they want,
Yes.
right? Competition is great, and every partner makes the Salesforce implementations stickier. So they're going to buy more licenses. You're going to expand. There's a that's one of the most common misconceptions is it's a competitive thing. And I cry more than I laugh when I hear that because it just,
Yeah, and that goes back to your point earlier that you've really got to pick that niche or that your point of difference. What are the 1 to 2 things that you do really well? Like, I run uh, a, a community. I also about to start an AI mastermind, and we've got a lot of Salesforce partners in both. It's a large share of the total ecosystem, so therefore it's representative in the numbers that we have in our communities. And everyone should be different. Like, I coach 3 Salesforce partners at the moment, one on one, but I can tell you their ideal client their messaging, everything is very different because otherwise, why come to me? You might as well just sit into, like you said, the sheep that everyone else is herding in. So look, I think that's great. I think overall, if you have been on for 4 to 12 months, you haven't got any traction, and you know that you need some help, Peter, and the criteria now is the person to turn to. What we're going to do now is just go, like you said, there's a lot of similarities to SIs, but I know there's a couple of differences. And I know you worked with a company called Wise Wolf, a Salesforce partner. Just tell us a little bit about what the situation was, what problems they had, and then how you helped them solve them.
So Wise Wolves is a great story. When I engaged with them, it was the typical, we do everything. I don't think they mentioned the white gloves, but they basically said the same thing. Anyway, after a little bit of introspective, I'll say, with the CEO, we both agreed they're a healthcare company. They do HLS. They do a lot of great work in that, right? And how it transpired after that in terms of the post-assessment engagement was quite interesting. Most SIs are not going to get leads directly on their AppExchange listing. I'll just say that right now, as
Yes.
opposed to ISVs. That's the big difference. That
Yes.
does not mean that prospects are not going to look at your AppExchange listing, right? Look at your expertise, look at the project reviews. They
Yes.
may not convert there, but it's an important part of that. I wanted to
Yes.
just call that out. Their website was, I'll say, challenging.
Yes.
And as part of the assessment, I also identify, event opportunities and working with Salesforce's partner co-marketing team, formerly known as AMP, the App Exchange Marketing Program team. It was just perfect time because the next week, first Life Sciences Dreaming Conference started by one of my good friends, Shannon Gregg. And so I called her up and said, hey, is there anything left? One sponsorship left. Anyway, long story short, got them the sponsor, and I actually went down there on behalf of them because they were otherwise committed. That was good, right? Because they got the presence out there and in the community where that's one of the things that I focus on, right? You know as well as I do, you got to be there, and you have to have a face to the name. Taking that focus, doing the event, that led to doing a engagement with the AMP team, right? The App Exchange Marketing Program team. So we did this amazing video with Sage Health. You can go and look it up, Wise Wolves Sage. And I helped facilitate that video. And a great example of an SI who's willing to, I don't want to say willing to listen, but they know they're not the experts in everything
Yes.
and willing to take some input and farm out some of these things. Like I said, I don't do everything. There were things that I frankly couldn't do,
Yes.
but that was a great example. And frankly, it worked. The last Life Sciences Dreaming that just took place, happened in July. I was down there. I'm on the organizing committee. Guess what? Wise Wolves, the platinum sponsor, working out quite well. So that's a great example of, in a year, literally, a transformation and providing
Yeah.
measurable results.
Brilliant. And well, I want to quickly ask about SEO, right? Like SEO gets everything's getting bad press at the moment because of AI, right? And we don't know what's happening. And there's another Chinese player that's just hit the market, etc., and everyone's like going crazy. I know that I personally have moved my Google to my second screen on my phone. I've moved Perplexity to number one, right? So now I only search in Perplexity as an example. Given all of your experience, is Perplexity still using Google as the data source on the back end? Or, where I'm going with this is, what are some of the trends that you're seeing on SEO that has changed your strategy given the introduction of AI?
Well, great questions. I don't know the answer to that specifically, but it hasn't changed what I do in the sense that the App Exchange is search algorithm has not changed, right? And it's not built on Perplexity. It's not built on any of these modern things. It's more of a, I don't want to say a traditional machine learning model, right?
Yeah.
But it's been in place for many years, and it gets updates once in a while. But that this entire AI thing that's going on outside the scenes, that only impacts the organic, right? Which is
Yes.
part of obviously what drives traffic to potentially to the App Exchange listing. I can't say for certain because to me that's secondary. And the reason I say that is you're already getting, so the App Exchange gets a lot of traffic, obviously.
Yes.
Quite a few people go there to look for solutions. App Exchange search, specifically as a lead source, is the number one source of deals. And I say
Yes.
deals specifically,
Yes.
right? And that's where the bulk of my efforts and my expertise is on in terms of the impact, is optimizing the listing or listings to perform better in how the search algorithm scores you so that you show up, number one for this keyword or number three instead of 42 or 19, right? And being in the top five is where you want to be. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and then look, I think my view is, you're talking about the fundamentals, right? You're using data, you're getting the fundamentals right. I think AI may expedite some certain things, but I don't think it's going to change those fundamentals in the short term. It might help you get better at doing it, might help you get better at doing your job so that therefore you can impact more people. But you're still coming up with a strategy, right? I still haven't seen AI come up with any strategy that I'm thinking that's better than what I would have thought of myself, right? Yeah, well, that's been
Yes.
my
So
perspective.
I was just going to say, so I do use AI, but to automate some of the manual tasks. So for example, reporting, right? I take the downloads, exports from the marketplace, it's CSV files, right? And that was very time consuming, right? When I started, it was literally charting and graphing. So I've been able to use AI, and I'm not a developer, but to develop, more advanced fundamentals. So that part's automated. But when it comes to actual listings, I mean, once in a while I'll ask, some of the models like ChatGPT or whatever about optimization, and it's not there yet. And I don't know. I think we're all trying to figure out where this is going. To me, it feels like everything is kind of a toddler, whether it's this model or that model. I love Perplexity. It's a great example. But when it comes to Salesforce partners specifically, and I'm not selling myself, but it's more than just the listing. It's
Yeah.
more than just SEO. Well, as I talked about Wise Wolves, right? There's opportunities with the AMP team to make a video. Well, those work great. I have no relationship with the AMP team. Just
Yes.
full transparency. The only reason I push for those is because it works,
Yes.
right? Events, presentations, those types of things. While it might be helpful in some of the limited capacities, I just don't see it impacting. I haven't seen an impact of what I do whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah, and look, yeah. So I think it's a really good summary, and also we're recording this in February. Who knows by March, April? I know there's meant to be a model coming out that is meant to be two times what the human can think. Well, if that does, we'll all adapt, I suppose, when that comes out. But at this point, I totally agree. And this is February 2025, recording this. What we're going to do now is just pause for a moment, and we're going to thank our sponsors, and we're going to come back for the rapid fire. Ever spotted your dream client on LinkedIn only to find yourself bogged down in tedious data transfer at the expense of building that critical relationship? Say goodbye to manual tasks and hello to efficiency with Surfy, S-U-R-F-E. Surfy transforms you from a virtual assistant into a sales pro by seamlessly capturing, syncing, and enriching contacts from LinkedIn into your preferred sales platform, be it Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Copper, or even Google Sheets, all in one single click. Imagine reclaiming those precious hours spent on data entry and redirecting them towards nurturing valuable connections and closing deals, which we all love to do. With Surfy, it's not just a dream, it's your new reality. Ready to invest your sales time where it truly matters? Try Surfy today by visiting our resource page at paulhigginsmentoring.com/resources and clicking on Surfy. Elevate your sales game with Surfy because your success starts after the click. So, Peter, ready for the rapid fire?
Let's go for it.
All right, great. So the first question is, what are some of the things that you do, your daily routines to help you be better at what you've just articulated?
Take breaks. To be honest, I used to travel quite a bit, and now I'm obviously working remotely. I have to, make sure that I'm not staring at the screen for 7 hours at a time. Every couple hours, I get up and just get away.
Yeah, fantastic. The next is, where do you go to find out more about your expertise?
That's a very good question. There's a lot of sources. It's in terms of the community, I have a bunch of partner portal accounts, so I'm active in terms of chatter, in terms of what Salesforce partner team is doing and getting some updates. That would probably be the number one.
Yeah, great. And if we could grant you one wish for the appexwhisperer.com, what would that be?
That is a great question. So when I started this 2.5 years ago, I didn't plan it. I was just, pivoting, staying on the bull, if you will. I've learned quite a bit through those 2.5 years. My one wish would be 2.5 years ago, I wish I knew what I knew now.
Brilliant. All right, fantastic. Well, I'll have all the links, etc., in the show notes. But Peter, thanks for coming on the show, and for the people that I've referred to you behind the scenes. I know they've been very happy with the work you do. I know you're particular, which is good on who you work with, but I know the people that you do work with get really good results. Yes, a lot of ISVs, but also some SIs as well. And as I said, if you're not a Salesforce partner, you can still learn from this by going and looking at your own listing on your own partner portal, whatever that is. And unfortunately, we don't normally get a chance to update them, and that shows, and that is the window. Sometimes that's the first impression really counts, and that's part of it. So, Peter, thanks a lot for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great interview with Peter. And as I said on it, you don't have to be the expert in this area. You just got to know who it is. And as Einstein said, you don't need to know every book in the library. It's just the one that you need right at that moment. And Peter is that guy. And like you said, he's got a good criteria, but reach out to him. We've got all of the links. He will. You can book a calendar meeting with him about the assessment, which is on his website. And also, if you're out walking, driving, as I've said in other podcasts, you can use, if you're an iPhone user like me, you can just use Siri. Just go, "Hi, Siri, create a note." Remind yourself when you get back in the office, get to it. Also, share it with peers who may have an opportunity that Peter can help them with. And also, don't forget to catch Peter on the YouTube channel, Paul Higgins Mentoring. And what you can also do is subscribe if you love what content is there, because it's more than just this interview. There's other interviews and a lot of value for you as a tech consultant or a /SaaS partner. I'll see you next time on the Paul Higgins Show. Time for action. Let me know what you implemented from the show. I promise to respond. Plus, get the Tech Consultants Roadmap at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap.